Welcome to another episode of the Understanding Ultra podcast, the podcast that likes to ask the question, why? We aim to give you the insights from the top ultra runners and trail runners from around the world, the people that work in the trail industry, and everybody else. We dive into training, nutrition, mindset, and racing strategies to help you to become the best ultra runner that you can be. So without further ado, let's speak to our next guest. Okay, so welcome to Understanding Ultra, Robbie Britton.
All right, thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for coming on. So for the listeners and the viewers that are familiar with you or unfamiliar with you, you're an international elite ultra runner. You got a 2:29 marathon PB. Your 24-hour record is 200. Well, that may have changed. 261 kilometers. You're a bronze medalist for the 24 hours. You just broke your own 100-mile PB. That's right, isn't it? 13:55.
Yep.
Yeah. You're an ultra coach. You're a nutritionalist, and you're a well-established writer and journalist. So, do you think that sort of describes you well enough?
Sounds like a jack of all trades, doesn't it? Yeah. No. I used to be an athlete who coaches, and I'm probably now a coach who does some athleting. And yeah, I run a lot. I cycle my bike a fair bit, and I very much enjoy ultra distance sports in general.
Yeah. I've heard your foray into long distance cycling. Was that due to was that kind of something you've always been into, or was that something that came about through the injury that you had?
So I had an injury 3 years ago now, and I just started. I was really fit and tried to keep the fitness up for a race, and jumped on the bicycle and ended up signing up for a race called the Trans-Pyrenees, which is about 1,500 kilometers. But it kind of felt like a good first bike race, and just got sucked into the world of ultra distance cycling or bike packing. And there are some absolutely wonderful people in that community. So I got stuck into it quite quickly, and I DNF'd that first one. Added to my very small, I think it's 3 races I've DNF'd over all my years of endurance sport, and that was my first bike race, was one of them. But at least that was because I was woefully underprepared rather than anything silly. And yeah, so like I've been the last few years, and now going forward, I'm trying to combine the running and the cycling, because it brings a lot, like not just the people, but also it's just kind of a real different psychological challenge. It's quite enjoyable.
Yeah, I can see the attraction, especially when you're injured and you're kind of forced into finding some form of cross training. And I know that maybe it's just like a personality thing. If you're predisposed to be an ultra endurance athlete, you can always find that aspect in any sport that you do. I know that I got stick from my wife last summer when I was injured, and I took up paddleboarding, and within a few weeks I'd managed to turn it into an ultra endurance sport by doing like a 20-mile paddle down the river. And she's like, how have you turned something that should have been like a nice pleasant thing to do while you're injured into an endurance sport? And I'm like, well, don't know, I just got this, you're obviously, the same, if not worse, that once you get your claws into something, you feel like you have to do it 100%. Is that how you are with everything, that you go at everything 100%?
Again, you got to play to your strengths, right? If you're good at, if I enjoy something, I have to do it for a long time before I beat everyone else. I just enjoy it. It comes from a real love of kind of exploring what's possible. So like with running, you like, if you're focused on the marathon or the 5K, which is bloody hard to do, and to do them well, right, you just keep chasing quicker and quicker times. Whereas when you start an ultra running, you chase quicker times, also longer distances. And jumping on the bike, I was able to go like further than I'd ever been before in terms of time and sleep deprivation without my body letting me down. So it was wonderful to I was racing 3, 4, 5 days. I think it's the longest one, where you just and the clock never stops. So you're sleeping as little as possible, and just like cracking on the whole way. And yeah, I just found a lot of enjoyment from it. Just chasing new limits that I didn't think I was going to get to chase for quite some time.
Yeah, it's a great thing to do, isn't it? When you've got that time to put into something, when you can't be doing the thing that you love 100%, then it's great to have that alternative. But sort of rewinding then a little bit, what's for people that aren't sort of familiar with your background, how did you actually get into ultra running in the first place? What was your route into it?
My route into ultra running. So back in 2009, I signed up for the Windermere Marathon because a friend of mine, Mr. Adam Smithy, at uni, he signed up. And I've always said it was so he couldn't have sole bragging rights that he would do in a marathon. And I signed up for that and Edinburgh in a 2-week period to raise money for Diabetes UK. A close family friend was suffering with diabetes. And from there, I signed up for the London to Brighton, like I think it was about 6 months later. Just fancied it started in like where I lived in London and it finished at the beach. Brighton's a nice place to go anyway, so I thought, why not try a run there? And yeah, just kind of from there, I started doing longer and longer races. Turns out the longer it went on, the better I was. So I just kept picking longer races. I won a 100-mile race at Centurion Running's North Downs Way 100. I won that and was like, oh, I might be okay at this. And it's kind of dedicated more and more time to the sport. And yeah, from there, that was 13 years ago now. Coming up to 13 years since I did my first ultra.
How old were you then when you first took up ultra running then?
I would have to say, due to the power of my mathematics, 22. Yeah, 22.
That's
quite young.
It is, yeah. It is. Well, we say that. It's over the last sort of few years, you would have said that was young, wouldn't you, for ultra running? Because traditionally it's like a middle-aged white man's midlife crisis kind of sport, isn't it? Like
people that have lived a lifetime of suffering find they excel in a sport that requires suffering. I think that's probably how we look at it. You youngsters haven't suffered enough to really excel in ultra running, but
yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah. So the London to Brighton, that race doesn't exist anymore, does it?
So this was a trail version. It wasn't the classic London to Brighton that the likes of like Don Ritchie and Calvin Woodward would do, or Bruce Fordyce, or even before those guys, like everyone coming over from, because there's that Comrades London to Brighton kind of crossover. You try running down that road now, you'll just get pushed off it by cars. It's not a nice road to, like back then. I think it was a lot. They run on open roads, I believe, but there was a lot less traffic. And yeah, they used to absolutely tear it down there every year. And the people who won Comrades would come over to London Brighton and vice versa. So that one, yeah, finished before I got into it. And then there was a trail version, which was 56 miles. That whoever was running that stopped a few years after. And now I think there are still a couple of different variations that go on now, different organizations that still keep that one alive, but different routes, not the fast road route. Because the likes of Calvin and Don used to run really quick times down. I think there's like a sub 5 hour 50 on there at one point, like obviously, and then they carried on to finish. I think they might not be as quick as that, but they were darn fast. Because Calvin Woodward would love to start as fast as possible, which is always makes for good watching. Not that I've ever watched him race, but I've read about it.
Yeah, makes the good blow ups later in the race. Yeah,
he set a 100-mile world record of 11:30 and change, 11:30 sank, and en route he set a 50-mile world record and a 100k world record, and his 50 mile was under 5 hours. This is on the track at Tipton, and then it took 6.5 hours for the second 50. And he ran 100k in 6:25. So he always raced like that. Always, like, it was his style. And yeah, and then the rest of them, there was always a bit of a tear up because there was there's a lot more races. But Calvin Woodward was known for, like, they would go as hard as possible for as long as possible and then hang on.
So what's your kind of strategy? Has that changed over the years, how you approach tactics for racing?
I like to progress through the field as the race goes on. I find not only is that kind of better for getting your best physically, but psychologically it's a darn sight easier, because it comes into our perception of effort, like how hard everything feels isn't just physical, it's what we see around us. And if we were overtaking people, every internal feels easier. I have gone out and done races and gone a bit faster to see what happens. And normally in shorter ones, it's quite fun to go. I would have go and meet the man with a hammer every now and again. And just absolutely, I did a race in, where was it? It was the Cortina Sky Race, part of the Lavaredo ones in the Dolomites. And it was like 30 plus, like 35, 36 degrees. And I said to my wife, Nats, she wasn't my wife then. So, but I said to her, like, I'm going to go off at dickhead pace. As long as you were right with a bit of swearing, you can bleep me out if you need to. And I just wanted to see what happened. And I hit max heart rate within the first 5K. I blew up massively. I finished third in the end of something, but I probably didn't have my best race there. But I wanted to feel what it was like, just to kind of experience it. And yeah, it's not great. But even like this weekend, I did the Gloucester 24-hour, and I didn't go out super slow. The heat was, unfortunately, it was a lot higher than we was hoping. It was like 34, 35 degrees at the height of the day. Everyone was a bit sweaty in the UK this weekend, I think. But I didn't go out super fast. It looked, again, it's relative, isn't it? So everyone's like, "Oh, you were flying." It was well fast. But I suppose only I know my fitness. My coach maybe knows my fitness, and yeah, I went out like control, but fast enough that I could keep the British record in mind. And for anyone looking on, it looks like I set off like at a wild pace and then just tried to hang on. But it was very much controlled during the heat. Like I wasn't getting soaring heart rate and dropping off in the heat. It was, unfortunately, I think the extra effort for that first half left me low on energy when it got into the second half, rather than the heat destroying me. The heat was a part of it, obviously, because it raised the effort. But yeah, so I'm not ridiculously. I mean, yeah, I like to have a proper race. Like if someone's going to go toe to toe and it's not a race, like an A race or not a championship race, I'll dig in and have a crack. But if it's a championship race, I do like to race quite sensibly. But that can well be off the front still. It depends on who else is racing. I just like to do my own thing.
Yeah, it's unusual, isn't it, to hear. I spoke to somebody after Western States, and she was saying she came in like 11th. I just spoke to her in the airport, and she said, I asked her how her race went, and she says, I went out too slow. And I thought, I've never really heard any ultra runners just to say that I went out too slow. Normally it's the other way around, isn't it? Normally we're known for miscalculating and then blaming that afterwards. I've never heard it.
I'm interested. Like when I was a bronze medalist at the World and European 24-hour champs, I missed second place by 40 meters over 24 hours. But I don't think I went out too slow. It's not like I was like, if I'd have gone out a little bit quicker, I'd have got those 40 meters, because it doesn't work like that. Like if you finish with something in the tank, then yeah, okay, spend it over the last 10 miles if you can. But I guess if you run out of ground to catch the people ahead of you, it's a bit unfortunate. But does that necessarily mean you started too slow? Because if you'd gone a little bit faster, you wouldn't have got to that point, because it's a very fine balance. And it comes with like energy intake, energy expenditure, like what you're burning. And a couple of percent higher, and you might be burning a higher percentage of the carbs you've got stored, rather than using stored body fat, and you're not going to make that sickness. You can be really quite a fine balance. So and I think I was the wrong side of that fine balance in terms of energy that I had available in the second half of the race. And yeah, so I went out too fast for that temperature, but maybe I went out a tiny bit too fast record wise, but I could have afforded to even go back a little bit easy and still have the record in mind. But I mean, yeah, it's only running, isn't it?
Yeah, when you put it like that, yeah. So on the whole, then, how do you feel on reflection about the race over the weekend then?
I mean, I'd like to have broken the British record, but I didn't. I took a lot of positives from it. Took a lot of confidence, but it far from kind of make me feel that what I want to achieve isn't possible. It led me to believe that it very much is. My body. My leg, I've had a problem with my right-hand side, like the right lateral chain tightens up, and I have real issues around there. And it's been a problem for me for quite a few years now. And that wasn't what stopped me. My legs felt strong at the end. I went back out. My crew, a chap called Mick Seymour, who's He's a childhood friend of my father's, and he's crewed every 24-hour race I've done since 2012. He said, look, I was a bit sick and I sat down there. He says, look, go out again. Just do another half hour. Get moving, do half hour, and then you can stop. But you could have carried on, because I wasn't. See, it's weird. I wasn't there to run 250k, which would have been a really good result for me. I've only ever gone further than 240k once, right? But I wasn't. If it was a championship race, I'd have stuck it out, ground it out. My team around there, it would have mattered. If I wanted to qualify for next year's 24-hour champs, I would have ground it out. But it wasn't what it was about. It was about trying to set a British record. So I went out there with that in mind, and when it slipped, I didn't dig as deep as I possibly. Oh, definitely could have. Like, I was moving, wasn't moving brilliantly when I was back out there, but I was moving. Could have kept it going, and just thought I'd dust myself off, and I'm already planning to try again this autumn. So like, that's if I'd have broken myself, I might not be able to be in this situation. Got to ride my bike today, and it felt nice. I could go for a run tomorrow if I wanted. I do want to, but I'm also sensible, so I'm not going to. But the body's recovering well, because I think I made that decision not to bury myself. There are times to bury yourself, and there are times to kind of dust yourself off and go, save that one for next time.
Yeah, it's the smart thing to do, especially when you had quite a big layoff from injury, didn't you? What was I was curious, because I heard you interviewed on another podcast, and you were talking about your issue with your knee, and you said how you needed to have a bit of hope, and somebody had looked at the way that you were stood and said that there was something. Yeah, I wanted to find out about that. What was it that
was
sort of triggered that bit of information?
Do you know Paul Tierney? He held the record for the Wainwrights and stuff. We were on Dan Lawson's Le Jog. I was standing at the end of the day, and I got to the point where I just kind of, we couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. We couldn't get it to improve, and I was just like, maybe I'm never going to run again. I'd lost that little bit of hope, and he just he helped me look at it again and just said, well, why are you standing like that? He just looked at it. He said, why are you standing like that? And I was like, as if someone's calling me. My father's calling. I said that before, and no one ever calls me. He's not called me in about 5 months. Right? I don't think he even knew I was in the UK. And then tonight, at 7:30 UK time, he's probably had a few beers and sat on his phone. He won't listen to this. It's fine.
He's probably wondering why you didn't come and see him when you were over there.
I just one sec. Sorry, this is very unprofessional.
No, it's fine. I don't edit anything out of the podcast, so we'll keep it as it is.
Text him to say I'm on a call. And Paul helped me kind of reassess a potential kind of cause for the issues. So instead of like a lot of the time when you look at an injury, you look at the site of the injury. You might look above it to hit how the hip is, how the back is, and stuff. But often, like, we're too focused on like the immediate area. And he was looking at my feet and how they interacted with the ground, and there was kind of a little bit of like, oh, maybe we can work on that. And it just gave me another way to look at it, another chance to kind of go, maybe we can fix this. And like I've done some stuff with Paul, and I've also done like some really good like stuff with my physio here. It's a lady called Elenia, who's an Italian physio, and we've been just doing the weird thing. Like we go when we do strength and conditioning work, we think it has to hurt for it to benefit. We think there has to be big gains with a capital Z at the end and crap like that. And I've just spent 12 months just doing very small exercises, and I kind of have it as akin to putting little tiny bricks in a wall, and you don't feel the benefit or the kind of impact of any single exercise, any workout. I mean, once every 10 days I was doing the leg press, and I was doing these like sets, and I was like, can I put on more weights? I need more weights. And she was like, no, tranquilo. And we're like building up. And then, I just started getting stronger and stronger and stronger. And the calves got stronger, the legs got stronger. I kept working with Paul just to kind of look at how everything was interacting. And we kind of just, made sure I was a little bit stronger all round. And here I am now, actually running again. And I owe that to a few people. But I always say that Paul, he helped me in like a very practical manner, but also in a very psychological manner as well, because I was just I'd given up I was kind. I was like, "Ah, that's fine. I'll just do the biking." But I'd given up running again, and it was the only time in all the years I've had issues with this knee that I'd kind of given up hope. And he come along at the right moment and went, "What about this? What about this, boss?" And I was like, "Yes." So I don't need much, right? The second, when people talk about coming back from injury and you worry about the injury causing problems, and then it kind of self-manifests in that regard. Like the second I go for a run and it feels okay for 10 minutes, I'm daydreaming about winning the World 24-hour champs. Like that's the way my mind works. It's like, whoa, best case scenario, I'm probably gonna, maybe I'll win the Olympic marathon. But that's where my mind instantly goes. Like, oh, maybe I'm a 2:10 guy. Like it can't help it, and I have to be careful with that, because it means when there are kind of downs, if something like reoccurs or there's a setback, it kind of hurts a little more because you built up quickly, and I try and manage that a little bit by just not getting too excited. But that's who I am. I get excited about stuff, and I'm optimistic, and I dream big. It sounds like I'm going to start going into like an inspirational talk now, but I think it's absolutely fine to have really big goals. One, if you're not afraid to fail getting them, and not afraid that you could spend your life chasing a goal and never achieve it, and be okay with that. And two, you got to put the work in. There's no point just dreaming big and then expect like wanting shit to happen if you're not going to do the lonely miles, the little exercises, grind it all out, kind of get up on those tired days and put the effort in. Yeah. So like if I spend 10 years the next 10 years trying to win the World 24-hour champs, I think, find out a way to beat Alexander Sorokin, and I come up short, but I've given it my all, then so be it. I'll be a happy man.
No regrets. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. So just talking about that injury, then that was something that you sustained in your previous career as an American football player. Is that right?
Yeah, career is a very strong word. The standard of American football, and I'm sure most people who play American football in the UK won't mind me saying this, is atrociously bad. I played for the Kent Exiles. I think I was like 16 to 18. A bunch of lads we played rugby for a little bit at school. I was mainly a soccer player for most of my athletic career. I just played any sport going. I love sport, so like anything competitive, like I'm up for it. And yeah, American football, I was returning a punt. I didn't call a fair catch, where you say like, "Hey guys, I'm just going to stand here and catch it. You can just like not smash the life out of me." And two of them got me at the same time, and it just got my knee ballooned up. And we were in the National Vase final or something, and that's the competition for losers. And we hadn't won a game all season, but each time we'd lost, we'd injured enough of the opposition team that they couldn't field a team in the next round, and we progressed. This is a horrible, like the sport, the injuries are cool. I never got many injuries playing rugby, or like some playing football, but the padding, the resin helmet, like, because you can't, like, you need a suit of armor from that. And you start putting resin helmets on people. Like I had knee pads on, but didn't cover the entirety of my knee, and they just come around the side, and I did a little spin in the air and everything. But yeah, I've had 2 knee keyhole surgery on my knee for the meniscal cartilage on the right hand side, lateral meniscal cartilage, and that's just, yeah, it's a bit untidy. But I mean, the second one come from a fall in a mountain race. I think again, it's hard to directly pinpoint the moment, because I carried on running and got back, and then I had a DNF'd the European champs, 24-hour champs, and then had knee surgery again after that. So I've had 2 of those. Okay, it's unfortunate, I think, because I've never been like someone who does crazy amounts of training. I've always respected the recovery and stuff. And you look online, you see people doing like absolutely ridiculous stuff, injury free. You think, that's not very fair, is it? I'm sensible and my body's falling apart. But maybe I haven't always been sensible, so it's probably fair. Yeah, that's football, yeah.
I suppose the genetics has its play, doesn't it? In with people you see people, don't you, that have had long careers in ultra running, that have done big mileage and never really got that injured, and then randomly they'll get injured, and then it like sets off a chain reaction of other injuries and stuff.
Yeah, I didn't have any injuries at all before this one, and it's plagued me on and off for 4 or 5 years now. But it is what it is, right? You just got to deal with it and it's given me more perspective as a coach. It's helped me as a coach for sure, like being able to kind of relate to how my athletes might be going through in certain situations, and that thing about that moment when Paul provided me with that hope to kind of keep trying. I realised that that's what an athlete needs. They don't need all the answers, because you can't give them all the answers. You can give them a little bit of hope, and hopefully some of the answers. Then you're in a good place. It's kind of just help them kind of psychologically deal with an injury.
But how did you get into the coaching side of things? Is this something that you, right from the start, you knew you wanted to do that? Is it just like a natural progression of being an ultra runner?
I used to be a football coach, soccer. Sorry, I've just, because we've spoken about the two different sides of football. From about 11 or 12, I coached the younger teams when I was playing. I was always the team captain and stuff. And at university, I managed and coached different teams. And then my background, when I did work, I studied geography, education situation. So my coaching style is very educational, and that's come from me having a background in teaching. So when I started ultra running, I picked up 4 or 5 people to start with, and just started working with people, just because I think that's one of the best ways to learn it, to build your experience, to learn how to do things, is to get out there and actually do it. And at first I definitely was an athlete who did some coaching to kind of create the lifestyle. And over time it's changed, and like my profession, I see that my profession as coaching, and it's something I put a lot of time and effort into to try and improve through doing it, through working with some other great people. My coach, Tom Craggs, I learn a lot from him all the time. It's wonderful. I've got a network of coaches that I chat to and work with. I did the performance coaching masters at University of Stirling, which was really good. My supervisor was Dr. Andy Kirkling, and he was brilliant. It just, the whole setup there was just structured around learning how to become a better coach. It wasn't like you need to do this, this, and this. It's like, this is how you learn to keep improving, and you never stop learning. You never stop improving. So, the nutrition stuff is with the IOC. So after I finished that one, I did a 2-year postgrad diploma with the International in Sports Nutrition, because it's an area that impacts ultra running and ultra distance sports so quite heavily. It's my profession. Like in the same way that anyone with their job, they try and get better at it. I treat it as my full-time profession, and it just so happens I swore really badly then. I really love it. Which feels like cheating. It feels like cheating at life sometimes when you're like, I've just got to do some work. Oh, what are you doing? I'm just chatting to some people about running. And I'm helping people get faster, and helping people enjoy their running, and helping people go on adventures. And it's like, oh, that's your job. It's like, yeah. And then I'm going to go and ride my bike for a while with someone else. I'm helping him, and I'm coaching him to ride his bike faster. And you're like, oh, right. And that's work. Like, yeah, that's work. It just feels like something's not quite right. You're like, something's gone wrong here. But no, it's how it works. It's possible.
Brilliant. So we met very briefly at Western States, because you were there, weren't you? Running Hayden Hawks in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was the one and only English guy on the follow cam from Roby Point down to the track. So
the downhill one.
Yeah, the downhill bit. Yeah, down to the track. Yeah. So if so I don't know what time was that. It was probably sort of like about 9 o'clock in the evening, something like that. 8.
You probably know better than me. I was spaced out. I just had to chase Hayden for 38 miles, and that man is born in the desert at altitude. Trying to chase him anywhere is a nightmare. It was tell you what, with the follow cams and stuff, I felt like I should have had one at one point, because when Adam came past Hayden's, people who haven't watched Western States, Adam Peatman was first, Hayden was second, and when we left Forest Hill, which was 62 miles in, it feels bad now. I picked up Hayden, he was in first, and then I helped him achieve second. But Adam, I knew Adam was closing in on Hayden, and it was kind of, when do I let him know this information? And we were further down, and when we could see Adam was coming, I let him know. And then I got to watch the battle for first place. And I don't even know if people know, for about, 5 or 6 miles, they were back and forth, toe to toe. And there was a climb that was about I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes long, and it was steep, and they tore into each other the whole way up it. Hayden had stopped for a week, caught up with him, and I'm like, I'm watching Western States happen. I'm watching the decisive moment, and no one else in the world even knows this is going on. And they were like going, I was at threshold trying to keep up with a pair of them going up this climb in the heat. And yeah, it was fantastic. And then he it all cracked on, and yeah, we had some tough moments, and Hayden got through really, really well. And we held on to the year before. He'd had similar experience and ended up dropping back to, he was M8, but I think 11th overall. And this year, he rallied really well. We kept moving when it was tough, and yeah, he did a fantastic job and come through and got second. And I was really, really chuffed with how he, we're still working on that being first position next year or the year after, whenever he does it. But yeah, he did fantastically well. I think a lot of people, I saw him firsthand on the trail how hard he was working for it and how hard he was struggling, and he really did well to overcome it. So I was really glad I was out there to witness that.
Because that could have really set him back, doesn't it? When you're in first and somebody comes from behind and takes, because you see people destroyed by that, don't you? They're just like kind of psychologically, and then they end up dropping even further back. So yeah, I mean, if you'd had a camera at that point, that'd been absolute gold.
It's all up here. That's it. It's nice, isn't it? Every now and again, stuff happens in the world and nobody's filming it, and it's bloody brilliant. It just snaps in my mind. Even that won't drive it anymore soon, will it?
So how did you prepare him for that race then? Because you've not done Western States, have you?
I have not done Western States, but thankfully there's a lot of information out there about it. I don't think you have to be done a race to coach a race. Otherwise I'd be struggling, because my athletes do a whole range of stuff. Hayden had a lot of knowledge around the sport. He's a real student of the sport, so he knew a lot about it. We were working together in the build up to the first one. I'm trying to think of the timeline. I just threw a lot of talking with Hayden, what he felt was possible, what was needed. When you're working with any elite athlete, they're not coming to you as a rookie. They're not coming to you as someone who hasn't achieved brilliant things beforehand. You've got to respect what the previous coaches have done. You've got to listen to what the athlete feels is right, and try and find that kind of balance with what's possible and what's best for them. And I spoke to Alison Benton, who was Tom Evans' coach. I had a really good chat with her. She was great chatting about the training that went into Western States for them. And I looked at training that Martin Cox put in for Beth Pascal and stuff. We've got some British coaches who've had some really good success over the years at the race. And I spoke to some James Elson, who's I work with at Centurion Running. He's run the race and stuff. And I've coached people for Western States before. It opened my eyes a bit more being out there, seeing. I really feel like it does put me in a stronger position, having seen that last 38 miles. But yeah, we did a lot of running in the build up. I know it sounds real obvious, right? But there's a lot of races out there, especially mountain races, that you don't do as much running for. So Hayden's currently training for CCC, you got people training for UTMB, and you don't run everything. Whereas Western States, you do. It's a running race, right? It's probably as hilly as it can be and still be a running race. And that second half, even more the bit you did from the Roby Point down, that's runnable. But before that, there's loads of runnable stuff to climb up to there. Hayden run every step of it. And there might have been a couple of walk bits, but he was a bit tired, and he was letting me catch up. But yeah, it's a runner's race. So we did a lot of running and a lot of kind of working on that. And but even looking after the race, looking at Adam's training, he did some really good stuff in there as well. So you pick bits. I know Jim and Hayden talk a lot about their training, and you're always learning from people that come before you. So that's how we prepared for it. It was teamwork. We looked into it, and we got him as fit as we could for the start line. We did our heat acclimation, and we went for it.
Yeah, great race. Absolutely. It's my first time I'd ever been over there, so I've never seen it before. So I was I was quite fortunate to have landed on my feet with that job, just running around with the camera. Yeah, it was quite a nice job. I think in the end, I ran 38 miles filming everybody. I clocked it all.
Blimey. Nice. How did you get that job then? Just people
Well,
you knew out there?
I keep talking about this on the podcast that I've done. I think I'm giving away my secret. All I did was just email Billy Yang and just said, "Have you got any? I'm going to be at the race. I've got no transport because I'm just flying in literally that weekend, and then I'm going off to see my brother in Canada after that. I've got no transport. I can't go to any of the checkpoints. Can I be at the finish and do something for the media team? Because that's my interest." And he was like, yes, right, send an email to this girl, and sent her an email, and she was like, "Oh, you got no transport, are you okay running with a camera to the finish line?" I'm like, "Yes, of course I am. That's absolutely fine."
Right.
And I didn't quite really comprehend the gravity of how I was going to be on every single person's Instagram feed for the race, running them in. And then like hours and hours and hours of YouTube, and it was a great experience, and I'm 100% going back next year, even though the wife has told me I can't go back next year. See, she doesn't watch or listen to the podcast. So
she doesn't listen to the podcast, Joel, right?
No, she won't know until next year, unless somebody listening now who will tell her. Probably don't know. But enough of my selfish antics. So part of your coaching, then you've written a book, and I do apologise. I've left my copy of the book in the house, and I'm outside. Have you got yours to show up to the camera? Or
are we going to be doing the camera? I'm looking. I didn't know I was doing camera.
Well, I thought you got your favourite wife beater vest on.
You can't call it that anymore, mate. That name has been vetoed. This is a postcard for 1001 running tips. Get a bonus tip for the people who ordered it.
Okay, yeah.
1001 running tips. It's got some good advice in there. It's not just a beginner's guide to running, like tie your laces nice and tight, but not too tight. Although I think that might be in there. That's solid advice, right? But there's touches on like heat acclimation, altitude, psychology. There's a section on like the menstrual cycle, which I got a lot of help with that one because I don't know. But it's also an area that I'm really interested in learning more about. So like one of my athletes and fellow coaches help with that. There's bits about kit, there's bits about multi-day adventures, about running FKTs, sleep deprivation, which I quite enjoy. That mostly comes from the bike packing, but it's actually the consequences are higher if you fall asleep on a bicycle. So I wanted to learn about it. But yeah, it's from Vertebrate Publishing. They're a small independent publisher. They have absolutely some of my favorite mountaineering books in the world. So like Joe Tasker's Savage Arena, and like One Day as a Tiger, which is about Alex McIntyre. This is my favorite books. So like to work with them for me as a founder of mountaineering and like a reader of all their books was really cool as well. So yeah,
they're local. They're in Sheffield, aren't they? I looked them up today and realised they're a Sheffield business.
They've got a seconds website, right? Because a lot of books get sent back from some of the big bookshops and publishers and sellers, and if you go on there, they're like £5 a pop. Some of the books, and they like I think last time there was a picture and there was loads of this. One of my favorite books is called Savage Arena by Joe Tasker. It's like back in the late 70s, early 80s. And yeah, that book makes me, every time I read it, I want to put it down and start walking towards the Himalaya. I just cannot, it just has this magical kind of just chuck spots make me go into the mountains. But then that's on their seconds website. That's a really good. If you're looking at the publishers, look at that and then One Day as a Tiger. It's absolute. Buy that before you buy my book, because that book is just awesome. But then buy mine.
I've already brought your book, so it's too late.
Buy that one next.
So going through, I like the way that it's set out. I wasn't quite sure because it forgive me for saying this, but the title, when I first heard the title, I thought it seems a bit gimmicky, but then actually when you actually look at it, it makes a lot of sense, and the way that you've separated it out into different sections and all of it makes really, really, really good sense. And for saying that, that it's come from someone who's a coach and someone who's a high performing ultra runner, it seems very like down to earth and very accessible for everybody. So it's not just something that you know, you've got to be like somebody who takes yourself seriously in running to be able to pick it up and read. There's lots of stuff in there that's genuinely funny, but is actually stuff that you do need to know about running. Is that just your personality coming through in the book?
It's so like the actual format. Originally, they had a guy called Andy Kirkpatrick wrote 1001 climbing tips. 1001 climbing trips would also be a good book, and that's where the whole format come from. And yeah, like I in my head, I wanted the kind of the thing that kept sticking in there was good advice doesn't have to be boring. Because sometimes you get really good advice in books and really like textbook style books on ultra running or just like distance running in general. They're not the most exciting to read. Like I've got Tim Noakes' Law of Running. I've never really used it other than like to kill a wasp or something. No, like it's a big hefty book. It's a textbook. It's a reference book, but I've never really sat down and read it. And like I wouldn't mind to be something that people could pick up and like often they'll probably read it in the bathroom, right? Because they sit down and they can read 20 tips, depending what your bowels are like, maybe 30, 40, and actually take something useful away from it, but also enjoy reading it. And if people enjoy what you're reading, then they're more likely the message is more likely to get across. It comes like I remember thinking, was it? It was like Billy Bragg or someone saying like, there's no point shouting about politics because people don't want to listen to you shout about politics. But if you entertain them and the message are within there, then you've got more chance of that message getting across. So I took that idea with running. So if people are entertained reading about running, but also learning, it can be educational.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. One of the things I wanted to bring up was one of the things that made me laugh when I was reading it was the tip on the nutrition side of things, the tip about people shouting about their diets being the answer to all of life's problems, like keto or vegan being, and the people that write about their diets in capital letters on social media. Just thought that was really concise and very apt for the kind of culture that we live in now. How was your training? You're doing like a master's degree in nutrition. Have you finished that now? You still doing that?
Yes, this is postgraduate diploma, so it's the first 2 years of a master's, and then I can now convert it if I want to by going to a separate institution and doing a dissertation. So it's you get like postgraduate certificate for 1 year, diploma for 2, which is what I've got. And if I want to spend another $4.5 grand, I can convert that to a master's. I don't know if it would increase my learning and knowledge to do that, but it would look better after my name. But I can't put any more. I've already got 2 master's degrees. I don't think you can put that repeatedly. So actually having the PG diploma looks better because it's different, right? So I can put those letters after my name, but I can't, if I convert it, I then no longer can. So like in terms of like my ego, it looks better to have just those. But no, like nutrition's it's a difficult one, right? And it's so important in distance running. One, like fueling for races and around your trainer, but just in general, everyone's really individual, but also it's not super complicated. It doesn't have to be. And if someone says they've got all the answers, then I would just be wary. If someone's got one size fits all for everyone, this or this diet is the best thing for everyone, then just be wary. Ask questions, figure out a bit more for yourself, find out what works for you. And one of the huge areas of nutrition that I don't think is focused on enough is the psychology around it. We all have different attitudes to food. We all have different attitudes to hunger. It comes from our upbringing, our genetics, loads of different things. Our own personal self-image and stuff impacts how we eat and our mood and our happiness and our current life situation. So those are the things that we've just got to kind of accept, that you can know very well what to eat and how to what you should be eating and stuff to get with, but actually it's not as simple as that. And kind of giving yourself a break, like if you just like my diet's far from perfect, but it does what it says on the tin. It's balanced. I started this phone call having an ice lolly because it's hot, and I ran 110 miles on Saturday. So I'm having a bloody ice lolly. And yeah, my wife and I turned vegetarian. It was like 6 months ago. I was mostly vegetarian, and then there was a boar stuck near our house, and it was kind of like an epiphany for Nats. I was like, oh, she's like, they're going to save it. I was like, no, they're going to kill it and eat it. And she was like, oh, but that's a really nice looking animal. I was like, yeah, but that's where all food comes from, dear, all meat. And we were like, oh, let's. I said, I don't mind going vegetarian if you like. For me, it's an environmental thing, but it's also, yeah, I quite like vegetarian food. I don't need it, but I also don't. This is probably the first podcast I've said that I'm a vegetarian on. And if I got to halfway through a race and the only thing to eat was a sausage and I needed that energy, I would probably eat that sausage. Because it's not, yeah, it is, for me, it's kind of an ethical decision, but, and to like an environmental decision, but life's life, isn't it?
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. I think if it works for you, it works for you.
So is that like a conscious thing that do you think that decision was easy for you to make because of the knowledge that you got recently with your study in nutrition, or is it something that's you kind of figured out anyway?
I think when some people change diets and they're like, well, this diet's worked for me, I've lost loads of weight. So a lot of that's when they're adapting to the diet, they're kind of like they can be deficient in stuff. They can eat less calories because they just don't know what they're supposed to eat. And if you change to a vegan diet and you cut out eggs, cheese, half your favorite snacks and all your favorite ice creams, and then you go, oh yeah, I lost weight because I went onto a vegan diet. It's like, you lost weight because you cut out all that stuff and you were hungry. Like, it's not a simple, it's not like, it's just, I think, yeah, they try and kind of put this magic. I mean, yeah, it's not that hard to be a vegetarian these days. There's so many options. Even like we had athletes coming out. We work with this Hour 7 team, which is Mike Stocks and another chap called Dom Ashdown have set up a team, an ultra running team to support some UK athletes. And we were organising the dietary requirements. So coming out to us, Lee, is this, that, and the other going to be fine? And yeah, we were in a tiny little mountain village, and they had like lactose-free milk. They had gluten-free bread. Like they have, like it's there. Like again, vegetarian. Yeah, plenty of places. It's easier to. I mean, my grandparents live in Cyprus, and they struggle a little bit with their vegetarian. They've been vegetarian for 30, 40 plus years, 50 years, I think. And the Greek Cypriots didn't like. I think they had their butcher giving them pork and tomato sausages because they were like, well, they're vegetarian. It's like, no, it's not quite that way, mate. But yeah, so like in that culture, it was a little bit harder, but then we eat fish. So I think we're technically pescatarians. But not that much fish, but yeah, I still eat crap as well. I still eat loads of sweets and cake if I want to. So it's not like vegetarian diet is so much healthier. Well, it isn't if you solely eat kind of like vegan Haribo, because that's a woeful diet if that's just 100% of your intake.
Yeah, and I know, yeah. My wife has told me about some of her friends, so their school friends, some of the school mums that have sort of gone through this phase of being vegans and vegetarians, but they were telling her the things that we were eating, and it was just all just rubbish. It was classed as vegan, but it was all like pizzas and just stuff that you just
I had pizza tonight, mate. What's wrong with pizza? How dare you? You can't say that to a man living in Italy. Pizza is a staple part of anyone's diet. That is agreed by both Robbies who run quickly in the UK. The other Robbie is Robbie Simpson. He's a lot faster than me, and he was 10th at Sierra Nevada this weekend. And what did he eat the night before? A damn pizza. He eats a pizza for every race.
Okay, I'll take that back.
Yeah, how dare you?
Pizza every day then. Okay.
Not every day. Come on. It loses its magic, but it is a superfood, like lentils. I don't know. I don't use the term superfood, apart from margarita pizza.
Yeah, right. I'll know that. I'll put that in the show notes. That's your
recommendation. It's wonderful.
From Robbie.
No pineapple on it apparently now. Now I live in Italy. They would revoke my residency if I recommended pineapple on a pizza.
Yeah, come to think of it, actually, yeah, some of the best pizzas I've had. We used to go to what's the place? Back a long time ago. I say a long time ago, 20 years ago. Show my age now. I used to go snowboarding in Livigno in Italy.
Yeah,
So
nice.
yeah, Livigno, and they're still some of the best pizzas I've ever had, and that was followed by a couple of beers at lunchtime on the slopes. Yeah, so I can attest to the quality of Italian pizzas.
That like up in the mountains in north of Italy is not the place you can get the best pizza either. So even that would have been to an Italian probably a subpar pizza, but to anyone else,
yeah, to an English
pizza I've ever had. Yeah, oh yeah, like down in Naples, and like the food in Sicily. Oh my word, it's just next level. Just there, like I mean, yeah, I thoroughly recommend it.
Making me hungry now. Right. So what are the plans for the future then? What have you got on the horizon that you can talk about?
I nearly did like the same thing we do every year. Try to conquer the world. That's showing my age. So I have got a bicycle race, which is the one I DNF'd. Starts the 27th or 28th of September. It's called the Trans Pyrenees. It's organised by people called Lost Dot. Pardon?
Unfinished business for that race then?
Yeah, I'd like to go back and finish it. And it ties in well to have a little bit of downtime after the 24-hour race and do some more cycling. I do live in an absolutely wonderful place for cycling as well. And then I haven't fully decided yet, but I would like to go and do another 24-hour race this autumn and have another crack at the British record in slightly cooler conditions. But other than that, yeah, just keep. I'm out at the Tour de France crew. My wife Natalie, she's running the Tour de France for the second time, and then I'm at the European 24-hour Championships as part of the UK management, supporting a wonderful team of athletes there as well. That's both in September, in the same week as well. That's going to be a little bit tough, but yeah, that's what's. I'm at CCC Crew in Hayden, and I've got a few other athletes running there as well at the UTMB festival, and yeah. Busy. What else am I doing? I don't know, just enjoy it. I'm going to go ride my bike a little bit more this week. Going to go and see if I can go up some hills. And yeah, just anything really, anything enjoyable. I'd like to convince more people to come and live in northern Italy in our small town. That's on the agenda.
I heard you. I think it was when you were on. Was it might have been the Bad Boy Running podcast. You were talking about how what a bargain your place was over there.
Yeah, it's €5,000 to buy our apartment in Codula.
Yeah.
No, we emailed them literally to say, "Hey guys, there's an error, but we'd love to. Is it supposed to be 15?" And they were like, "No, it's 5." I'm like, "Can we have a look at it?" I'm like, yeah. We come looked at it, and it's 2-bedroom apartment, lovely high ceilings. It's got an attic, it's got 2 balconies, and they were like, yeah, well, I said, what do we do next? He said, well, you can put down a deposit. You know, normally that's obviously quite substantial, a deposit on the house. It was €1,000. I said, you know what? I think we can find that. And yeah, we paid off the mortgage over a year, which was enjoyable. Now we live a mortgage-free lifestyle in Italy, and it means that we can just, it's just that it allows you the freedom to focus on the enjoyable parts of life, I think. It's less to worry about bills and such.
Are there any more bargain properties out there to be had?
Yeah, there's a website, idealista.it. If you find you've got too much time on your hands and you want to look at random Italian properties, that website is bomber. There's loads of little ones out. These so the town we live in was where the sportswear brand Fila.
Yes, yeah.
They used to be this town. So their factories are now, I believe, in Southeast Asia, and we've got 2 empty factories here, and the population's gone from just over 2,000, similar. I saw on Google, similar to your town, to about 1,000. So imagine if your town had half the amount of people in it now, which is probably the second home to people from London and Derby coming out. You never know. But yeah, like that. If you just half the amount of people, then yeah, there's loads of empty properties. So that's what's happened where we are, which is sad, but we're going to try and bring it a bit more.
Yeah. So your idea is to turn your village into like an endurance mecca for Italy.
Yeah, I was thinking more like a commune for like dirtbag runners. But I like that, what you said as well. That sounded good. We've got from our doorstep, we can run up in under 9K, we can climb 1,500 meters to the summit of Monte Baroni, which is 2,044 meters. And on the other side, you can climb just as nearly as far, you can as far, but it kind of goes up for 1,000. Then you're in the Oasi Zegna National Park, which is just wonderful, one of the first national parks in Italy. Created by, there's a really fancy clothing brand called Zegna, and their factory's up there. So it's kind of 5K up the road. And he was a bit of a socialist, and he kind of built a hospital, swimming pool, like loads of stuff for the community. And it's probably one of the reasons the company's still going strong. Also, it costs £2,000 for a jumper, which is wild. I like to look at it every time I go past it in Milan airport and be like, can't afford that. And then he's got this Oasi Zegna National Park, which is like 1,000 kilometers squared of just beautiful mountainside, and like there's trails, and there's some fire roads in there and stuff, and there's little huts. But yeah, you can just go and adventure in there. So that's all on our doorstep. And we've had the Giro d'Italia come through here 2015. So both sides have got, I've got 600-meter road climb on one side on the bike, 1,000 meter on the other. So much, like, the cycling's wonderful around here. So yeah, it should be. We've got downhill mountain biking trials because there's two brothers on the other side of the river who are enduro champs, for national enduro champs. So they've developed a really fantastic downhill mountain biking. You just get a little bus that goes up and drops people down it. It's just, it should be, I don't know, I don't like, people come in and they go, oh, this is actually quite nice. And you go, yeah. And they go, well, because it was cheap. We just thought you were being like, yeah, it's great, when actually it's properly shit. And it's like, no, it's nice. Oh, wow. Yeah, I thought it was going to be really shit. I was like, yeah, thanks. I did that a few times. It's quite funny. It's really cool, really nice area, and the people are lovely. We just had new neighbours move in, which is exciting as well. They've come around and asked for some onions tonight, and we didn't have any. And then the neighbour downstairs bought us some onions up, and we were like, oh, we don't need them. So we knocked on next door, gave them the onions. It's like, whoa, look at that. The universe is providing for everyone.
Amazing. Well, you've sold it to me anyway. I'm going to have a look on.
I'll send you a link. Put it in the show notes.
Yeah, put it in the show notes. Get everybody buying apartments out there.
What was they going to live in? Go on a second house.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So appreciate your time, mate, and thanks for coming on and chatting to us. What's for people wanting to? I don't suppose you've got any spaces for coaching, one in, one out.
It is, yes, yeah, one-to-one coaching. I don't. But with Centurion Running, if you go on their website and on the coaching page, I work with a team of coaches and I mentor some of them, and kind of we all work together. So if you want to work with one of our coaches there, they're a great bunch of people. And we all learn together, and we always kind of have regular chats and kind of like try and learn. And we've also got this thing called Training Plan Plus, which is a group coaching setup. And that is, I am one of the coaches, and Sophie Grant and Tom Craggs is my coach, one of the other ones. And that's all right. It's a more affordable version. You get your plan once a month, and the communications in a group, but actually it ties into this idea. What's the term? Community of knowledge. I think that's the term. But everyone kind of, you learn from the group. So actually, like the first time we answer a question to the group, the next time someone new asks it, someone else in the group asks it, or they've learned from their experience. So it's really, you've got a really great bunch of people. We've had people. One guy was 6th at the MDS. People were just doing their first 50K, their first 50 miler in there. So it's a real mix of people, and that's got space. So if you do want to try a little bit of, if you like the noise that I make, then I reply sarcastically often in that group. So, and non-sarcastically sometimes as well, just to get my point across.
I appreciate you replying to me as well, because I realise that not everybody replies to Instagram direct messages as well, do they?
No. I've got some I don't reply for, but they're about like, yeah, like that kind of, some of them are promising wild things that I don't think they're really offering. So this one seemed real, so I thought I'd message back. I don't get that many messages.
Nothing wild on offer here anyway. So if people want to get in touch, then just you're Ultra Britain, aren't you, on Instagram?
On
anywhere.
Instagram and Twitter. And if you're really keen, we live in Codula in northern Italy. Just come and knock on the door. I'm not giving the full address. We're the only English people here. Just be like, dove inglese, and they'll find us. Yeah.
Robbie, tell me where Robbie is. Yeah.
One that runs around the town repeatedly whilst there's beautiful mountains everywhere. Yeah, that idiot. Yeah. They all know that I'm just doing loops.
So you can be found if needed. Excellent.
Yeah.
Right.
I might email back. My email's out there. It's in the book, actually, for people that read the book and can say, you know what, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. They could drop me an email and let me know. I like chatting about running. So yeah, I'm always happy to chat to people. Or you can enter a 24-hour race that I'm in and I will talk your ears off once per lap, 24 hours.
Brilliant. Well, appreciate you coming on and sharing some of your knowledge and experience with us, with the listeners. They're much appreciated. So look forward to seeing how you get on in your next races, and I'll keep in touch. Thanks for coming on, Robin.
Cheers, Sam. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks, mate.